Not in a million years did I think I'd be covering a TCG again anytime soon, let alone one that's on mobile devices, but with my time with Pokemon TCG Pocket doing extremely well over on TikTok, as you can see by the video over on the other side of the screen here, I figured why not do a set analysis of the new Mythical Island set here on YouTube too. Before we get started, do let me know if you enjoy this content and like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me with regards to Final Fantasy, RPGs, or indeed Pokemon TCG Pocket, because if you like this then I'm happy to make more stuff on it. So let's just go on ahead and jump right in. My primary concern with this set is the idea that it's going to just elevate the decks that are already good into being even better, specifically Mewtwo EX decks. Now we've seen what Mew EX is capable of already because it's just a good turn one play for a deck that didn't already have one, and it also provides counterplays to existing Pokemon like Mewtwo EX itself through its genome hacking ability. And we also now know that if it's copying an ability from something like Mewtwo, then it is going to have to discard those two psychic energies because it's part of the effect of the attack. But if it's asking for fire energy, for example, say from Charizard, then it's not going to have to discard those because it doesn't have fire energy attached to them. But when a deck's best counter becomes itself, so if you're using Mewtwo EX and then you're running Mew EX anyway and it's countering through side drive, you have a bit of a problem, because that's when a meta can become really centralized. Obviously this is early days yet and we don't know if that's going to be factual, but it's kind of scary. This of course is backed up by the likes of Budding Expeditioner and Mythical Slab, which are both trainer cards that are designed specifically to help psychic decks out. If you've been playing Pokemon TCG Pocket for a little while, you'll know that Coughing and Wheezing have done really well up until this point because of Koga. Well, now Mewtwo decks have access to that through Budding Expeditioner, which can only target Mew EX, but that doesn't matter hugely because it still allows you to deny your opponent extra points for not taking the Mew out and giving you a free switch in on Mewtwo. And then you have Mythical Slab here as well, which for some reason is a cantrip available but only to psychic decks, because if anyone was worried that that deck wasn't consistent enough, well, now you've got extra ways of getting to the cards you need. We've also got a brand new deck that's almost certainly going to see at least some play in Celebi EX combined with Serperior. Now Celebi EX on its own doesn't look super spectacular because it is still coin flip heavy, but at 2 energy, dealing 50 damage times the number of energy attached to it and the heads that you get from those coin flips, you've got a 75% chance on turn 2 to do as much damage if not more than Mewtwo. Of course, this is where Serperior comes in. Serperior has an ability that makes it so that any grass energy that you have attached to your grass Pokemon provides 2 grass energy instead of 1. So those 2 energy that attach to Celebi equate to 4 heads or 4 coin flips at the very least instead of 2, and this then doubles with every energy you then attach from that point. This deck is actually surprisingly similar to Mewtwo EX Gardevoir decks, where you have a stage 2 evolution and a basic Pokemon that makes up the core of the deck, and you get some unique support abilities thanks to cards like Erica only working on grass Pokemon as opposed to any other type. I will say though that I feel that Mewtwo still has a bit of an edge on this just for consistency's sake. I've been testing this deck throughout the day, and while Celebi scales extremely well over the course of the game and has a lot of interactions with other cards like Lilligant as well as Serperior if people choose to take that route, I just feel that relying on coin flips is never nice no matter how many of those coin flips you might happen to take. Another quick note is that obviously this is all day one observations. I actually love being wrong when it comes to predictions, when it comes to card games or metas or anything even close to that, because I like learning from other players. So please do take anything that I or any other content creator says with a pinch of salt, because the TCG community is notoriously bad at being able to tell whether something's going to be good before it happens, so just bear that in mind. There's actually a fair few other cards in this set outside the obvious picks that really interest me in this set, and I'm really keen to see where they go, particularly in the Dark lineup. Anyone who's seen me play TCG Pocket over on TikTok knows that Koga and Wheezing is probably my favourite combination of cards in the entire game, and this Coughing is actually really interesting because it allows you to pull a second Coughing out from your deck directly onto your bench, which then allows you to Koga your Wheezing later and immediately have a second Coughing to put that Wheezing back down onto immediately. I also can't help but think that Scolipede is a straight upgrade to that deck over Muck, certainly, because it costs 1 less energy to use, use, which energy is quite important in that deck because if you're lifting Wheezing up into your hand through Koga, that is energy that you're losing. And by being a stage 2 where the basic and the stage 1 only require 1 energy, the flow of the deck just seems to be much better with Scolopy than it ever was with Muck, but I'm interested to see how this particular one will turn out. I also can't help but think that Dark's going to see more play just on the back of how strong the Mewtwo decks are going to be, and if there's ways for us to counter that, then it's definitely worth looking into. Side note, I'm a little shocked that we didn't see a single Steel Pokemon in this set. Like, why have Steel if there's so few Pokemon available to use it with? And we only got 1 new Dragon in this set, and unfortunately, I don't think Drydragon is particularly good. Rough Skin is a nice ability, but you're not really going to be doing an awful lot else with Drydragon, and do you really want to be running 2 energy types to make this thing work? When it comes to the other EXs in this set, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little disappointed in pretty much all 3 of them, but for different reasons. Pidgeot EX I think has potential, but by being a stage 2 that requires 3 energy and being colorless, meaning that it has no engine to accelerate that energy, it just makes it a little bit too slow for my liking, which is ironic considering the kind of Pokemon Pidgeot is. I actually don't dislike Aerodactyl EX in a vacuum. I think it's actually pretty good. Its ability Primeval Lore sort of stopping your opponent from being able to evolve their active Pokemon is something that can capitalize on your opponent's poor luck, because if they have to start with something they don't want to, then this is kind of a final nail in the coffin for them. But it suffers the same problem pretty much every fighting deck does, in that there's a lot of really good mid-range damage dealers like Marowak, Aerodactyl, Sandslash, etc., Primeape as well, but nothing that really kind of accelerates into big damage like Pikachu can, or Mewtwo can, or now Celebi can. Gyarados I'm really struggling to place. I think that by having 4 energy as your only attack, whilst also having to evolve from a Pokemon that has 30 HP, just does no favors for Gyarados. If anything, I really hope that I'm wrong about this Pokemon, because in my eyes, it's just the worst EX that we've had so far. But I previously thought that Arcanine EX wasn't particularly good, and I was very wrong about that, so I hope the same thing happens here, to be honest. A lot of people are defending Gyarados by way of this Vaporeon and Misty, and my argument for that is that Vaporeon is itself a stage 1 evolution that doesn't really do an awful lot by itself, and if you're having to rely on Misty to get these cards to work, then why not just run Articuno and one-shot your opponent on turn 1? If you're gonna lean into that luck factor, at least like fully lean into it. But if you're wanting to run like a more consistent water deck, I still think that the likes of Starmie EX and Greninja are the best way to go, and they're so energy efficient that you don't really need the likes of Vaporeon. Electric decks didn't really get a huge amount from this set, but let's be honest, they didn't really need it. Not that stops Psychic decks, but Dedenne is actually pretty solid. Like, a lot of people use Pincurchin in their Pikachu EX decks as a way to stall out until you get to Pikachu and get that live and having a basic that does something, and I'm pretty sure Dedenne is just a straight upgrade to that. I previously didn't think much of it when I saw it on the previews, but that's because I really don't like Dedenne and I was kind of wishfully hoping that it wasn't very good, but it is actually solid. Having a turn 1 play that just instantly gets you into paralysis and helps you stall out until you get to Zapdos or Pikachu is going to be better than Pincurchin, which requires 2 energy. I do think, however, that the Galvantula line is kind of interesting because Joltik, while having very minimal HP, does do 30 damage for 1 electric energy, and then Galvantula is kind of like a side grade to Electrode, having similar HP and damage and energy costs, but trading that free retreat cost for an ability that makes it so your opponent can't retreat, much like Arbok. So maybe we'll see Galvantula seeing play as well. I don't think that Charizard or Arcanine Fire decks got a huge boost from this set. However, I am interested to see what the new cards that interact with Blaine will do, particularly this Ponyta. I think this is a straight upgrade to the original. Yes, it does include a coin flip, but by just trading in that 10 damage for consistency over 30 damage potentially is a really interesting turn 1 play. I'm less sure, however, about the Rapidash. A lot of people are kind of looking at this really favorably, and the artwork is stunning, I'll give it that. But having coin flips alongside Blaine isn't something that I really love, because the last thing you want to happen is to be in a position where you're having to use Blaine but risk not taking out the opposing Pokemon because you flip Tails. The main reason that deck is good is because it has consistency with its damage. But if you're going second, I'd say this Rapidash is slightly better than the other one, whereas if you're going first, then the original Rapidash that just does 40 damage for 1 energy is still better. So I'll be curious to see how this one goes. I'd like to know what you think of this Rapidash. As another aside, I think it's hilarious that Salandit and Salazzle in this set are kind of done backwards. Like, why does Salandit have Venoshock to capitalize on your opponent being poisoned, and then Salazzle be the thing that poisons it? Surely that should be the other way around. So I don't want to go into too much detail on every single card in Mythical Legends, at least not right now anyway, but do let me know if you've enjoyed what you've seen from my coverage of the set so far, and I'll be happy to make more of it because, well, you know, I've played TCGs for a really long time and I've got a long history with them. So if you'd like to hear from somebody who's worked for TCG companies, done very well with competitive TCGs in the past, then let me know. And if you're not sure what to type, then just type the word algorithm into the comments because it's really helpful to me as a content creator. And with that, I shall love you and leave you. Thank you ever so much for watching. And as I said earlier, if you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, then consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, or coming and finding me on all of my other social platforms like TikTok, Discord, Twitch, anything like that. Or if you want to support me directly as a creator, then you can feel free to check out either my Patreon page, which is linked in the description box below, or my Etsy store, where I make handcrafted drawings and paintings of various characters from video games and do prints for people. So if you enjoy that, then feel free to check that out. But until next time, I shall say thank you and goodbye. Take care.